Welcome back, BrookLAN, for the last time here at our PC. We are going to be doing finals. I am your host, Tyson Hughes, here with Kevin Miller. Are you ready for finals?
I'm ready, dude. It has been a long time coming. We have seen some of the best battlers of this tri-state area come together today, and we are down to our final two.
And that's the best thing about these locals, especially the New York ones, is you're able to gather everyone from the tri-state. And I think the tri-state, no bias here, but the tri-state is probably one of the best areas, I think, in the States.
If not
the best.
It is one of the best.
It's a little unfair, right, because the tri-state covers so many areas, but I'll say Jersey is the best of the three.
For sure.
Even though I'm from, like, Philly, I still think that Jersey and New York have so many talented players. There's just so much talent. And seeing it all come to together is amazing. And we've seen so much new talent rise up through Scarlet and Violet and in Generation 9 here. And one of those people, I think, is Jacob Mortenson, that one of our finalists here today, who I want to talk about a little bit, has done a lot of like content around VGC and stuff like that. But they've done really, really well at these local level events and even at regionals, I think, as well. I know at the Beast Coast event, they made day 2 actually as well and did really, really well. We aren't going to have much time to talk about the players, though, as we are going to jump into Game 1 of our finals here. We'll touch on the players a little bit later. We have Pelipper and Iron Hands and Iron Hands and Ogerpon on Paul's side.
Yeah, Jacob running the Rain team that we saw earlier with the Choice Scarf Urshifu, and we have the Ogerpon Water and Iron Hands leading the balance team for Paul. Jacob has to deal with another Water Ogerpon here. We will interested to see if he brings the Urshifu in the back again. Big deterrent for that Pokemon, but
I think it's so funny both these trainers decide to lead off with their water type that's not Urshifu plus Iron Hands. And we are going to see a Terra Ghost there from Jacob's side of the field, maybe avoiding something like a Fake Out and not having super effective damage from the Iron Hands. We are going to see an Ivy Cudgel into the Pelipper, bringing it down to that Focus Sash.
I mean, Paul not necessarily maybe calling the Terra. I think Ivy Cudgel in the rain still does decent damage there. At least breaks the Sash on Pelipper, but knocks it to the Sash as Pelipper gets up Tailwind.
But I think this was a really smart play because if this is a Volt Switch from Paul Chua, then they might be able to get a free switch.
We see the
We
see the Volt Switch in the Pelipper, knock it out, but Pelipper got a Tailwind. So let's see if Jacob, if he has what is in the back necessary to take advantage of Tailwind.
But I think that was an excellent play from Paul turn 1, realizing that even if the Pelipper doesn't Terrasilize, Cudgel in the rain and Pelipper's kind of poor defenses, you're boosting the Ivy Cudgel, and with Volt Switch, with 4 times super effective, even though it's a special move, it's able to pick up the K on that Pelipper. I think Paul is very confident in that.
We see the Amoonguss hovering over with Jacob. Jacob will switch in the Amoonguss, and now we have 2 Amoongusses on the field right now. Maybe not the most advantageous position in Tailwind to have your Amoonguss Iron Hands on the field, but we will see how it works out for Jacob here.
Yeah, and I think Amoonguss coming out from both sides makes a lot of sense as well. Both these Pokemon, or both Amoongusses, I should say, not even threatening Spore that much. Jacob has Amoonguss on the field, but you're not able to Spore the the Ogerpon or the Amoonguss. You can only really damage either of them, or potentially call a switch in. We are going to see the Goldago come in here. Instead of wasting its Terrasalization on your Iron Hands, Cudgel coming out instead of Amoonguss, doing more than I would have thought. That Rain really helping. This Pollen Puff, is it going to be able to pick up the kill on the Ogerpon? It is not. And Pollen Puff going into the Ogerpon, healing it back up on the ball side.
No Spores clicked. No Spore was safe. Jacob had Terra Grass and also a Goldango in the back. But really good play from Paul there to get the health right back on his Ogerpon.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting now. Now that Jacob has spent the Terrasalization on Pelipper, I think Jacob maybe was kind of weighing how important the Ogerpon is in this matchup. And if you go for a Terra Ghost, right, and you do get the Fake Out plus Cudgel play correctly, and you are able to get like a Hurricane off into the oh wow.
We see the Ivy Cudgel in rain, crit this Goldango, not going for Pelipper Terrasilize on turn 1. The Goldango was not safe, and it just picks up the knockout.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, though, is because a critical hit to bring Ogerpon back to where it was before. But I feel like Jacob's in a really rough position because you burnt your Terrasalization on that Pelipper turn 1. and Paul kind of just doubled up on it. And the terrestrialization was just like a cherry on the on top.
Yeah, Paul was able to delete your Terra for the rest of the game, get rid of your Pelipper, and now Jacob just locks in the forfeit after realizing that he doesn't have enough momentum going forward in this endgame, and that is a quick Game 1 victory from Paul.
Yeah, and Paul kind of showing why Water Ogerpon is really strong, especially into these Rain teams. The Rain teams have a lot of tools to kind of break through. They have the Dragon Goldengo. They have their own Amoonguss, but Water Ogerpon takes advantage of the Rain, so I think Jacob is really going to have to consider how they want to play around the Water Ogerpon and figure out what pieces they want to bring and when, because it's really, really important.
Yeah, we saw Jacob not really take advantage of Tailwind that turn, so maybe something like the Hurricane getting huge damage under this Water Ogerpon could be very good going forward. If you do get rid of the Water Ogerpon, you have an in for Urshifu Rapid Strike potentially in the back, as I feel like Jacob really needs that big damage and big speed boost to maybe take advantage in this set.
Because the thing, too, is Paul has the Water Ogerpon, but they also decided to opt in for that Amoonguss as well. So you have two Pokemon that really kind of shut down your Rain mode. And I think Paul correctly assessing that the Pelipper is kind of the main threat there on the field, that the Hurricane plus Wild Charge, if Jacob went for that under the Ogerpon, Paul was like, okay, I'm okay with trading that because that means I get my Cudgel and my Volt Switch off. I'm getting rid of the Pelipper. I'm okay with trading my Ogerpon, and then I just get my Amoonguss in for free. And there's no more Hurricane to threaten it. So I think Paul's game plan is also very, very solid, realizing that, okay, I just need to support my Iron Hands with my Ogerpon and my Amoonguss, and as long as I can manage that, I should be fine to deal with the threats like the Goldengo.
Yeah, Paul, I think the Water Ogerpon, as much as it is there to redirect Urshifu attacks, it is what it's best at. It did so much damage in the Rain that was set up by Jacob's team. That Rain enabling the Water Ogerpon to do so much damage is such a boost for Paul's offense.
Yeah, absolutely, and we are going to see a differently from Paul this time. That's the Chien-Pao Iron Hands. I could not speak on it enough. And Pelipper Urshifu. Jacob immediately putting their foot on the pedal there and pressing the gas and just going for straight offense.
Yeah, we see no Water Ogerpon in the lead for Paul, so Jacob has a guessing game. Every turn he feels like he may click a water move with his Urshifu, but getting the he does block straight
fake out,
straight surging strikes into the Chien-Pao. Really aggressive play from Jacob, and it pays off. This Chien-Pao goes down.
It's paying off dividends there. Getting rid of the Chien-Pao turn one is amazing. I mean, Jacob's not out of the woods yet. Something like a Wild Charge is very plausible from Paul here. Something like a Hurricane is going to come out in this Iron Hands. How much is it going to do?
A good chunk. Do we get the confusion?
Oh, confusion!
We do! Will Iron Hands break through and do massive damage to either one of these Pokemon on the field?
All right, with Paul's RNG today, it's been pretty good. Volt Switch does get the go off. No confusion there. Bringing Pelipper almost down to Sash, essentially Sash.
That is crazy damage from a special attack from Iron Hands.
It's a Pelipper.
It's still crazy damage. I'm just saying, Iron Hands continues to amaze me.
Yeah, but then here comes the Ogerpon. And even though you've lost your Chien-Pao, guess what? Guess what? You're back to you can go back to your turn one. Instead, we see the Amoonguss. Doubly the issue that we saw before. It's so difficult, I think, for Jacob now in this position. Urshifu is locked in Surging Strikes, and you know your Pelipper's getting Ivy cudgeled.
Yeah.
So what do you save here?
This Urshifu cannot, it is locked in the Surging Strikes, cannot make a move. Jacob has to make a safe play that doesn't give Paul so much momentum in this game right here. Paul letting the Chien-Pao go down, Jacob with a great aggressive play, but can he capitalize on it, knowing these two grass types are in front of Urshifu?
Yeah, so I think this Amoonguss here and this Ogerpon is massively positioned by Paul. Paul really realizing that, again, that Iron Hands is going to be the end game piece, that you really, really want it to be able to fake out stuff in the late game. We are going to see a Surging Strikes in Amoonguss. Pitiful, pitiful damage in the Rain, but it's chip damage nonetheless. And, you know, if you are able to double up on it, you know, next turn, for example, you are going to be able to break that Citrus Berry. And, you know, it's a small step to victory. Ivy Cudgel coming out here from the Ogerpon into the Amoonguss, doing about the same damage that Surging Strikes did to the Amoonguss.
I think Jacob is making really, even though that Surging Strikes didn't do a lot of damage, Paul really anticipated the switch there and, over-targeted the other slot. And Amoonguss switching into the Spore and Ivy Cudgel was a really great play from Jacob there. I still don't think the Urshifu is obviously in the best position, but that turn he really didn't give Paul the momentum, I feel like, by making that play. So,
but I really like this play that Jacob is thinking about here. I feel like it puts on a lot of pressure. And Paul is also in a spot, I feel like, where they're able to just kind of click buttons, right? Being spore immune on both the field here, Jacob really has to consider what they're doing. And we are going to see Surging Strikes into Amoonguss there. Finally be able to break that Citrus Berry. A small step that Jacob needs to do. They're kind of finding uphill right now, but it's a small step. A step nonetheless.
Yeah. I think Paul can like pretty freely target a Spore into this Urshifu spot, which might lose some momentum for Jacob. Breaking the Citrus Berry is very key. And we see Paul
focus energy.
Being very aggressive with the focus energy and setting it up for many crits in its future coming forward.
Yeah, so this is very interesting as well, is the Pollen Puff doubling up on the Amoonguss. You're doing chip. That might be in range of Surging Strikes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Water Ogre Pond might just... I think in this turn, you might have to follow me so this Amoonguss doesn't die. You are not... You might need to put this Urshifu to sleep this turn, play it a little safe, and let the focus energy build momentum for you later after this Urshifu goes to sleep.
Well, exactly. The Amoonguss is going to swap there, so if Jacob did go for a Spore in that slot, that could be potentially big. Iron Hands comes in here. It's not going to want to take the Surging Strikes.
It is definitely not, but did Paul click follow me? He did not. Surging Strikes in the rain. I don't know if it's enough. Iron Hands is such a bulky Pokemon. I think it might live here.
Oh, no, it definitely lives, but the problem is something like a Spore or might just go into that slot. And also, I don't think Paul doesn't have the follow me. Remember, it is that focus energy instead with the Horn Leech and the Ivy Cudgel. Pollen Puff not bringing to half.
I mean... This is
Does Urshifu live? I'm surprised Urshifu lived that. I'm not going to lie to you.
Urshifu did not get crit and hangs on. Crucial live for Jacob.
Urshifu switching out here. Is this the Pelipper? It is. Maybe sacrificing it off there from Jacob's end. Maybe reading that. Oh, fake out into the Amoonguss.
And we see Ivy Cudgel go straight into the Amoonguss as well. Does it pick up?
Oh!
It does not. Is that a crit? It is a crit, and Amoonguss holds on.
The boosted critical hit rate with the focus energy and the rain boost, it wasn't enough to pick up this Amoonguss.
Amoonguss here gets flinched, obviously, by Fake Out. And Pelipper switches in safe, but the rain stops. And I think Jacob just wanted it to go down this turn, and now he's in like an awkward spot where this Amoonguss can't protect, and Pelipper just, like, it feels a little useless without the rain and not being faster than the Ogerpon here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jacob, we saw this a little bit earlier, that, you know, low HP Pokemon doesn't mean you're necessarily out of the game. There's the critical hit, that raised stuff. That maybe the HP might come in handy later from that Horn Leech. Pelipper is going to go down there. What is this Amoonguss going to do? Remember, Paul doesn't have Heavy Slam to hit this Amoonguss, so you're not doing that much damage to it, which normally you would with Heavy Slam. This Iron Hands is instead going to pivot out back into that Amoonguss, getting that Regenerator, and starting that HP cycling.
Yeah, and a very free switch on the Amoonguss here. You're free from Spore, and just Clear Smog going into the Amoonguss, doing very negligible damage. And Jacob needs to make a play here. He needs to get this momentum back in his favor. Yeah,
so I think I would have liked to maybe seen that Clear Smog into the Ogerpon. But you're not now. Again, you find yourself against Ogerpon versus Amoonguss, and you've lost your Pelipper. You have no Hurricane now to really beat down these grass types.
See, Jacob has to click and move here with Urshifu, be locked in unless it switches out. Very interesting what he opts to go for here. We see a Terastallization from Paul, I believe. It is the Water Ogerpon. Very interesting. Getting that boost at Spadef and losing Water Absorb. But we'll see what Paul does with the Terastallization here.
Yeah, and if Jacob was able to call his turn correctly and Paul didn't go for something like that Rage Powder, Close Combat could potentially get the KO.
It does
on the Ogerpon!
Huge pickup from Jacob here.
Absolutely amazing call from Jacob.
Close Combat doing enough damage, taking that piece off the board, and honestly, it was causing him so many issues. It is such a big KO for Jacob. What happens here with the Amoonguss? We see Pollen Puff fail from Paul, and does Amoonguss Pollen Puff the Urshifu? No, it goes into the Pollen Puff and drops it below half.
So the scary thing there, right, that I wanted to mention before, so that turn was big for a lot of reasons, right? The Iron Hand is maybe at like 1 HP. a little bit over that. But the Amoonguss, right, doesn't have its Citrus Berry this time. I think the reason Paul made that play is because guess what? This Urshifu doesn't have Aqua Jet. It has Ice Spinner. So if you Ice Spinner the Ogerpon, you're doing a lot of damage to as well. But if you're Paul, you can't redirect it because then you're taking super effective damage on your Amoonguss.
Yeah, we see Fake Out pick up the Urshifu here, and Clear Smog does not pick up the Iron Hands, and Paul gets a free Pollen Puff in that slot. The Clear Smog not doing enough damage there, really going to hurt Jacob.
Yeah, and this is such a scary, scary endgame. It's Amoonguss versus Iron Hands here, the 2v2. We do have to remember, Paul does have that Chien-Pao in the back.
He does indeed, and Jacob has not terrestrialized yet. We're going to see him lock in the Terra Grass here. And
the battle was canceled, and it's going to go to Jacob for the game 2. Paul already knowing how that game's going.
Wow, Paul locking in the forfeit. I thought maybe there was an out, but Paul seeing something.
Oh, excuse me, they lost the Chien-Pao maybe. And that was just the 2v2, and that explains the forfeit a lot more.
On the screen, Chien-Pao was still alive. We were talking like there was an endgame there, but Jacob looks a little surprised Paul locked the forfeit in there, so I don't know. But regardless, we have a game 3 in our finals here.
Yeah, it's really rough, right, because you can't break the Amoonguss. You're able to just go for Rage Powders with your Amoonguss, and even though Jacob's Amoonguss was lower in that scenario, there's no Heavy Slam to guarantee the KO. While Jacob is able to just click Heavy Slam, Heavy Slam, Heavy Slam, and the Drain Punches, of course, add up, but you're getting put to sleep.
Of course. I think Jacob played really well that turn, keeping Paul on his toes, made some very aggressive plays that Paul didn't necessarily read or was able to capitalize on, and I think that really gave him the edge in that set to force it game 3.
Speaking of aggressive plays, the reason we forgot that Chien-Pao was dead because it died like turn 1.
It died on turn 1.
It got KO'd so quickly, we just had forgotten about it the entire game.
Yeah.
It was just not there for that turn. And I think that's really what gave Jacob momentum there, is getting that Surging Strikes into the Chien-Pao super early, that turn 1. I think that close combat turn as well. You know, it's kind of that mind game, right, where if you go for the Ice Spinner, right, then Paul might redirect it, but if you go for close combat, then it could be redirected, and there's just so many different variables in that turn. I think Jacob making the correct call there was a testament to their skill and why they deserve to be in top cut, or excuse me, in finals today.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Paul adjusts. Losing the Chien-Pao on turn 1, and then close combat picking up the Ogerpon really just swung the game in Jacob's favor. I really wonder what Paul does to push it back in his and gain the momentum in this game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are going to be able to see our leads here from both of our players, that being Paul's Iron Hands and Amoonguss versus Pelipper and Urshifu. Jacob sticking with their lead that they had in game 1, and Paul spicing it up yet again for this game 3.
For sure. Paul going very slow, very bulky, the tried and trusted, the true and trusted core of Amoonguss and Iron Hands. And I think Jacob needs to make a safe play here. We'll see what he locks in. Maybe he'll force Paul to not want to take this Hurricane and terrestrialize, but we see Jacob switch his own Amoonguss in and just locks
No,
Hurricane.
Fake Out again!
Locks Hurricane into Amoonguss, and it doesn't pick up. It lives. Oh!
Confusion!
It gets the confusion as well. This Amoonguss hangs on. Will proc its Citrus Berry.
Again, getting rid of that Citrus Berry is so huge. That Hurricane did so much damage, and not locking Fake Out, I think in the back of Paul's mind as well, right, is like, you always Volt Switcher, that's always correct, because especially after game 1 where Jacob had, like, the resources, or not the resources, excuse me, but they went for the Terra Ghost. So it's got to be in the back of Paul's mind. It's like, I can't Fake Out. Like, there's no way. But Volt Switch is always a safe play anyways. It's just, I feel like it's another level of consideration. Ogerpon comes in here. Again, this super strong double grass. Is this Amoonguss going to get confused this turn? This could be huge.
Let's see. Amoonguss is confused. It uses Spore,
but it goes Spore into the Amoonguss spot.
Into the Amoonguss spot, targeting the Urshifu. I mean, it's an aggressive play. If like, last game, Jacob just stayed in with the Urshifu.
Exactly.
So Paul may be reading that, going for the Spore into that slot. Jacob switches it up very nicely. Paul's Amoonguss switches out, trying to get that regenerator health back after taking so much damage from that Hurricane on turn 1. Going into the safe Iron Hand spot, and let's see what Ogerpon goes here. Goes for the KO into the Pelipper. What does Amoonguss do here? Does it call the switch? Do we see a Spore here into the Iron Hand?
If we see a Spore from Jacob's end,
we do! What a call from Jacob, getting the Spore into the Iron Hands.
And that's a huge Spore there from Jacob's side of the field. Knowing that Paul and how they play, switching out that Amoonguss, knowing they want their Regenerator, how important it is and vital to this matchup, being able to Spore that slot and that Iron Hands is absolutely huge.
Such a good call from Jacob. Knowing that Paul needs that Regenerator health back. Feeling that this is the kind of play that you need to make in a game 3. And we see the U-turn going into the Water Ogerpon, doing half its health, coming back out, and we'll see Jacob's 4th Pokemon here is
and
the Iron Hands.
I think this is really where Scarf Urshifu puts on a lot of pressure. As you have the rain up, you're doing so much damage. The Hornleech goes in the Iron Hands. That does a lot more than I think Jacob wanted to admit, and the critical hit is definitely going to give Ogerpon a lot more HP than Jacob wanted.
Yeah, Iron Hands takes it still pretty well, but getting like more HP back from that crit is really big for Paul. As we see the Pollen Puff go into that spot, and Ogerpon is back below half, but Hornleech is threatening here. More health back, get it out of KO range. So very interesting turn here between these opponents.
I'm very scared of how these last turns are going to play out, right? Jacob has to make the call if Ogerpon is going to go for a Spiky Shield. Paul has seemed to be this game not really clicking the Spiky Shield option, going for things like the Focus Energy or just the Hornleech. So I'm wondering if Jacob is going to take advantage of that and maybe just click an attack. We do see the Terrestrialization Grasp from Jacob here. Very, very curious of where this Drain Punch is going. And what Paul is doing this turn. Yeah. I think if you manage your Amoonguss and your Ogerpon, you should be fine in this endgame. And we don't see a Protect, we see a Hornleech, maybe reading that Urshifu switch in, the Amoonguss staying in, maybe going for another Pollen Puff.
Yeah, we see doing no damage in the Amoonguss. Drain Punch into the opposing Iron Hands, getting some of this HP back, doing good chip into the Iron Hands.
Does this Iron Hand stay asleep, though?
And it does stay asleep.
It does!
What does Amoonguss lock in here? Does Pollen Puff, if he clicks it, pick up the Ogerpon from this range? He clicks Pollen Puff. Does it get the KO? And it does!
Oh, that's huge!
Huge critical hit! Huge critical hit. Picks up the Ogerpon, and Jacob is gaining a huge advantage in this match. That Ogerpon being away from the field opens up this endgame for Urshifu so much so, even if it doesn't have Follow Me.
Oh, and Qian Pao in the back. Even though we know Paul has Amoonguss as that other Pokemon in the back already revealed earlier this game, we saw what Urshifu did. Even though against Amoonguss, Amoonguss has no grass move to really attack back. So if you're able to get yourself in a position where your Urshifu could do lots of damage with the Surging Strikes in the rain, you're able to pick up a KO.
Oh no. We see Jacob with the hand-to-head. We see Paul lock in the Terrestrialization here with Chempao going Ghost. If Jacob clicked Drain Punch into this Chempao spot, Paul could gain a huge advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul's not out of the woods. Excuse me, Jacob's not out of the woods yet. We are going to see a Rage Powder come out there. And this Chien-Pao might be threatening down with a large Icicle Crash.
It misses!
Icicle Crash misses the Amoonguss!
Oh no, Paul made such a good read and just goes...
Oh man, and the Drain Punch went in the Chien-Pao too. That would have been an amazing turn, and the Iron Hand stays asleep. So if it did decide to go for something like that, a Volt Switch, it won't be able to that turn.
So unfortunate for Paul. I mean, this is the risk you run with running Icicle Crash over Ice Spinner. I'm sure that's not the first time today Icicle Crash is missed, but in a Game 3 of the finals, that is the wrong time for Paul to miss that move.
Yeah, Icicle Crash this time going to hit the Amoonguss. Does this pick up the KO? It does.
That is a nice pickup there on the Amoonguss. What is the Iron Hands on Jacob's side does here? Wild Charge into Chien-Pao, knocking it down. Pretty good damage. And let's see if Paul's Iron Hands
needs to wake up here.
It does.
It does.
We see the Volt Switch. Paul going for momentum here. Going to go back out into the Amoonguss.
And now Jacob is down to their, or getting close to their last two Pokemon here. I'm very curious of how they're going to play this end game.
This Urshifu is going to have to lock into a move here. Can Paul call the right move and position himself in a good spot to win this game?
Yeah, it's very scary, I think. So Jacob has so many options. Again, it's that Ice Spinner, right? Because you're able to go through Protect, this Chien-Pao isn't able to protect it very safely or anything like that. And you have to make the option, or you have to make the decision, excuse me, if what Jacob wants to click. And having access to that Heavy Slam on the Iron Hands, I think, opens up Jacob to so many different avenues.
Yeah.
And if you consider keeping Chien-Pao around on the field as well, you can take advantage of the Sword of Ruin boost, considering it affects both people.
If Paul clicks Rage Powder here and Ice Move into Iron Hands, he could get a, like if Icicle Crash lands into this Iron Hands and picks up the KO, Paul could gain a giant advantage. We do see the Rage Powder.
Gonna come out here.
Does Icicle Crash land into the Iron Hands? We see Surging Strikes go first, obviously not doing much damage to this Amoonguss, but it all comes down to, can Paul land this Icicle Crash?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a miss earlier on stream, and these sleep turns have been so rough in this Game 3, the finals here. Does Icicle Crash a hit? It does, and that picks up the Iron Hands.
And now Paul has a 3v1 advantage against this Urshifu locked into Surging Strikes. Amoonguss can safely redirect these moves, and I feel like Paul might run away with it here.
And I think the caveat of Urshifu there, right, being able to Surging Strikes, being locked into Surging Strikes, excuse me, Paul is able to switch in Iron Hands here and just Rage Powder away. No reason to risk anything. You can go for a Fake Out and go for a Spore, and you're able to just wrap this game up. We see without the Sword of Ruin, this Amoonguss is able to eat these Surging Strikes for breakfast. No Rain, no Terra Water, no Sword of Ruin. This Amoonguss hangs on with a sliver of HP from this Urshifu.
And just wraps up this endgame. Like we could see the Spore now, and Paul is free to Wild Charge and take home this championship.
Absolutely, and well played from both of these players here, for sure. This was an amazing set. We are going to see the Amoonguss there again, just Regenerator. There's no reason to risk it. Paul playing absolutely to the T and getting every single turn correct. I think the big turn as well this game was the Chien Pao Terra Ghosting. I think Jacob maybe like in the driver's seat, kind of like, okay, this game is pretty much mine. And the Wild Charge with the Sword of Ruin going to pick up the KO. Critical hit, sealing the deal. And Paul Chua is going to be your BrookLAN and PC champion.
Yeah, fully deserved. Like you said, that Terra Ghost play was crucial. Jacob completely oversighting that Paul still had his Terra, locking Drain Punch into that slot. And even though he missed the ISO crash into the Amoonguss, that keeping the Sash intact in Chien Pao, having that Terra Ghost was so crucial for that end game.
Yeah, I think the Amoonguss is the star of the show, and I think that double grass, even though you're bringing it into a Pelipper, it's a little scary because the Hurricane, but the way Paul was able to manage it with the Volt switches and the Ivy Cudgels not really caring, taking advantage of Jacob's Rain there was really, really well played. And I think assessing that the Pelipper couldn't really do anything about that, right? Because the Pelipper didn't have access to Protect. It had Tailwind and Wide Guard instead of the Protect option. So being able to guarantee that double up was super, super valuable, I think, for Paul.
Yeah, Paul getting rid of the Pelipper very early, like mostly every game, limiting Jacob to just 3 Pokemon at most times, and then, yeah, using the double Grass Core. I mean, when Urshifu is such a prominent Pokemon in the meta, like having 2 Grass Pokemon to completely resist the Surging Strikes, especially one being immune, is just, it's so key in this meta right now.
Absolutely, and Paul showing why balance is still, unfortunately, the ruler of Regulation E. Congratulations to Paul Chua again for winning the BrookLAN Battle Stadium PC today. It was amazing.
Yeah, such a great day. So many great battles that we got to cast. Got to cast every single one. It was such an honor, and just great day overall, so thankful to be here. And
yeah, so thank you to you, and thank you to BrookLAN for hosting us here today at the PC. Make sure to come out. They have an amazing venue here. If you want to stop by, even if it's not Pokemon related, come stop by. It's fun. I'm from Philly, and maybe I'll make another day trip out here.
Yeah, there'll be events here all season to come. If you're in the area, please come by. It's such an amazing place. And amazing TO, amazing staff, and just a great event overall.
And thank you to all the viewers as well for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream today. Everyone put in their hardest to make a good show today, and play the best Mons ever. And it was just a lot of fun. So thank you all for watching as well. And
I think that does it for us. We had nothing less to cast.
Yeah, no finals too, unfortunately.
Yeah,
there's no second bracket or hidden bracket or anything like that. There is going to be a Rutgers PC tomorrow for the tri-state folks, but I'm not sure if they streamed actually.
I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But yeah, that's it from us. Again,
thank you for watching. I'm Tyson Hughes here with Kevin Miller signing off. Thank you, folks. Enjoy the rest.